Welcome to Mindfulness Manufacturing. My name is Trevor Blondeel. Spending 25 years in manufacturing, I discovered the real impact we have on turnover, communication, and the ability to manage change is how we show up. That's the essence of emotional intelligence. In each episode, we bring a guest or message to expand your skills, engage your people, and grow your organization. So let's jump in. You know that feeling when you're having a conversation with someone and you're trying to get your point of view across and they're just not connecting with you. They're just not getting it. And you try harder. And what happens when we try harder? It usually feels harder and we just don't make that progress. And that curiosity level on this podcast on mindfulness manufacturing, we've dove into different areas. And this is one that I've always been super curious on. And we've talked a lot about the self-awareness, awareness of others, but there's always more to this. And my friend, Sandy Gerber from Vancouver, my fellow Canadian friend, she put together this book called Emotional Magnetism. I met Sandy, I read it, and I wasn't even finished. It's like, oh my gosh, I got to get her to talk to my manufacturing friends as well. So welcome today, Sandy.
Thanks, Trevor. Happy to be here.
Okay. So what is this? Like, what's the shift here that we need to do? Because I've made some progress here, but when I really dove into a lot of your research, it helped me understand a different level. Where's this coming from? What's your ideas here?
Yeah, well, I think what we're looking at right now is we've got a communication crisis, right? We have got so many ways to communicate, but we're not necessarily communicating better. So in order to connect with people, we really need this shift in our thinking. We need to think about what they need to hear to be interested in what you have to say.
But they need to hear what I have to say.
Yeah, I know you want to get your point across, but you know what? Everybody's so preoccupied, right? We've got so many messages coming at us in our business, in our personal lives, everywhere, that we're so preoccupied. So how does a message get across? Like, think about this. If we're driving to work and a billboard goes by, we see it. Mm-hmm. Next billboard goes by, we see it. But the third billboard all of a sudden catches your eye. Why is it that message on that billboard stood out for you, right? Why is that? Mm-hmm. Well, the reason is because that message is directly connecting to your emotional needs. And so you're paying attention. And so because we have so many things going on, we only really tune in to what's emotionally connecting to us.
Yeah, that sounds like the skill that I'm still working on, Sandy. and we see that it works, right? So I have been working on this. I still got more work to do, but we definitely see that in manufacturing, where it's more of the telling and the monologues than the dialogues of two people having a conversation back and forth. So I always say, like, at the basis, you need a relationship with a person. And then once you have that trust and some relationship, then you can get in some good conversation. But we're going to go into another level here, because sometimes I have both, or I see both, but we're still not driving this forward. What are you seeing shifting here that is taking this to the next level?
Well, I think there's, what we need to look at is what's blocking that communication, right? So what are the things? I mean, I've been studying communications and marketing for 30 years. I usually get a reaction with people when I say that, not as much anymore, unfortunately, but anyways. So I've been studying this for a long time. And ever since I was a kid, Trevor, I was fascinated with how you can use words to motivate people to yes. And I mean, my mom was a psychologist, so the apple didn't fall far from the tree. But I think, I was the kid in junior high. I was the kid that other kids came to and said, hey, Sandy, what do I say to get my parents to say yes? Right? Okay. So the thing is, it's all about looking at the words you're using to communicate to someone, to connect. Right? Mm-hmm. So what's happening here is we are so busy listening to reply and not to understand. Right? And because of that, we are only focused on what we need in that conversation. And so what happens, I'll give you an example. Like in this study that I've done, there's 16 different ways that we're blocking communication with people. And most of us don't even know that, Trevor. So one example of that would be, and this happens all the time, after some of your listeners hear this, they'll pick it up right away. So you're in a conversation, you ever been with someone where they're all excited to share a story with you. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden they're talking about, let's say, oh, I did this on the weekend. And then you start saying, oh, I did that as well. And you start taking the story in a whole different direction. Well, what's happened is you think you're building rapport with that person and connection, but what you've actually done is block communication. You've taken the story away from them. They didn't even get to finish their story. And by the time you're done your story, they've probably forgotten what they were going to say. So you actually break the communication there. So we have to be mindful of just really listening to other people. Let them finish what they have to say, and then respond to them with your own stories.
Oh, I've taken courses on empathy. Aren't I supposed to be telling my own story so that they can see that I get it? So like if I think of Northern Ontario fishing and I say, show them the picture of the fish I caught, and then it's kind of like, yeah, but I want to tell you, look at my fish. It's bigger. And let me tell you this story. And then all of a sudden my fish seems small.
Yeah. We do this. Most of us haven't been trained in communication, to be fair. Right. I had to do a lot of this self-study myself. I read every book you can think I could get my hands on to understand how to develop myself more and to develop my business. And I think most of us just, that was part of the reason I wrote the book, was to make sure that I went through a process and it changed my life. And I wanted to make sure that I shared that with others so that they could benefit in their communication, not only in their professional lives, but also in their personal lives.
You said 30 years you've been studying this. Book came out at a certain time for a certain reason. Like, how did you kind of discover this? What was the trigger? It sounds like, yeah, you're like me and we understand it, but then you took this to another level. What happened?
Yeah. So I'll take you back to the story and how I discovered this. So it was, so it was about 20 years ago. And I had just launched e-gaming in Canada, right? So this was a highlight of my career. I was flying all over the place, very exciting. And unfortunately, my children were very little and I wasn't seeing them very much. I had a vacation at the end of this big trip. And I'll never forget this. It was a pivotal moment in my life. My son tripped over a little branch and he scraped his knee. And when I ran to get him and make sure he was okay, he reached for the nanny and not for me.
Ooh.
Yeah, you can feel that. I can still feel it. Yeah. And so that's one of those defining moments in your life where your whole world changes. I left the corporate world promptly and went and opened a consultancy in my bedroom. And I have to be clear. It's a marketing consultancy in my bedroom. Okay. So I'm in the corner of my bedroom. That's a
different podcast.
That's right. Yeah. Different story. So I'm in the corner of my bedroom and I'm working and that's going okay for a few months. And then 3 months later, my marriage dissolved. And now I'm a single mother trying to earn an income in my own business. So I was sensed with this huge fuel of urgency to get some income and learn some sales techniques. Because I was a marketing and communications person, not really a salesperson. So I start on my journey to look for this book, look for something that's going to help me sell faster and better. I stumble across this book called The Magic Power of Emotional Appeal. This was done by Roy Garn and it's from the 60s. And Trevor, this thing looked like, it looked like a comic book. It was like a really, really odd looking thing. Anyways, I ordered it. And I remember this moment. I sat down, I had this musky book in my hand. I poured a glass of wine. The kids were asleep and I just started reading. Okay, I'm going to learn how to sell better.
Yeah.
And then about a third of the way into the book, I realized I start sitting up straighter. I put the glass of wine down and I discover the emotional appeal theory. Now, the emotional appeal theory is that there's 4 emotional needs that drive all of our actions and all of our decisions. In that moment, I realized, why I chose marketing as my career, why I shifted from one company to another every 2 to 3 years, why I was passionate about leading a team. And so many things started clicking into place. And so what I did is I looked at these 4 emotional needs. And as a marketer, it's really hard to, it's almost impossible to transfuse that out of my blood. I made this simpler. The book was a bit more difficult to understand. I made it simpler. I turned it into emotional magnets and I created an acronym called SAVE: safety, achievement, value, and experience. So these emotional magnets were pivotal in growing my business. What happened was I thought, okay, if this is what they say works, let's give it a shot. So what I did is I went on to and I grabbed this BC Shipping magazine and I flipped through the magazine and I was looking for bad ads, right? Like who needs my help?
Mm-hmm.
And I found this one from a rope manufacturer. It had like just horrific looking creative. It had like, when you put the glow on a text, right? It just was like so bad. I'm like, aha, this is the one that's going to need my help. So I pick out the ad and I find their contact details. I email them and I say 4 things. I apply all of those 4 needs in the email. So I say, for example, hey, if you structured your ad a certain way, then this is going to be more beneficial to you. If you understand that I have over 20 years experience in the industry and I can help you with marketing expertise, that will be of value to you. And if you actually put in like a call to action and I gave them the exact copy, then you'll likely have a better return on your investment of your ad spend. And finally, I ended it with what it's like to work with me, which is basically I used to work in the corporate world. Now I'm a single mom and I'm less expensive. Let's book a meeting. Well, 17 minutes later, I still remember 17 minutes later, I received an email response that said, yes, let's have a meeting. So 2 days later, I go to the meeting and we have this fabulous connection. We have a great conversation. They sign up as a client of mine. And at the end, I say to them, hey, I'm just wondering, what was it that made you decide to have a meeting with me? And they said, you know what, Sandy, we get emails and messages from people every day, all day.
Yeah.
But for some reason, your email just made me want to work with you. And that's the point, is that I had those 4 emotional needs in that message and it connected with them. They heard it through all the preoccupation of their business. They said, yeah, this is the person I want to work with. Well, it was shortly after that, just within 2 years of that, I applied it to every sales action that I took in the business. And Trevor, I was able to grow my business from my bedroom to a downtown loft in Vancouver with 4 team members. And I was awarded the top 100 fastest growing companies in BC.
He said, okay, I tried it. I found something out here that can be applied in so many different areas.
It works.
It works. I mean, that's I always say, what's the best data you have is what you try yourself. And so how can we, because I like the fact the book is a lot more about the personal relationship. But you really found it out through your business. And obviously we have something in common. We're both engaged to get married this year. So
yes.
So we're both in good places and very blessed, and apply that to our personal life and to our business life. And so where are you seeing the connection now outside of your business, outside of your relationship? If I'm in manufacturing and or if I'm just a leader, I'm driving to work right now, especially with this blocking, you really got me thinking about the fact that, like I told a story in the beginning, when I'm frustrated and I'm trying to tell somebody, I'm actually not even knowing and I'm blocking them. So explain, I want to go a little bit deeper into that and what's some advice there? Yeah.
So the biggest thing that you can do is really, you have to shift. Like Stephen Covey says, seek first to understand and then to be understood, right? We have to think from the other person's point of view. So if you look at your team, you're driving to work right now, you're thinking about your team. Maybe someone on your team is having difficulty in communicating with you or you with them. What is it that they actually emotionally need to be happy? If you think about that, is it, and I'll go through them with you. So safety, for example, right? If they're motivated by safety, so they're motivated by security and health and ease, a sense of ease and family. So relating to work and manufacturing, these are the people that are likely motivated to keep the factories safe. They are liking routine in their role. They probably have specialized skills. And, they put in their hours. They may not love their job, but they're really proud to be providing for their families. So that's someone on your team that's highly motivated by safety. If there's achievement and they're motivated by achievement, well, then that's pretty obvious. I mean, they're really goal setters, right? They're people that are hitting those production cues and those, the quotas and the levels that they need, right? They're hitting goals and they're motivated by recognition. I mean, we all are to some degree, but these people especially are. They want their work acknowledged, every aspect of their work. They want to be asked for their opinion. So maybe you have someone on your team that just always wants to offer their opinion. That's, there's always one.
Yes.
But that's probably because they're motivated by achievement. They want to be recognized for their point of view. The third emotional magnet is value. And so these people are really motivated by, worth and growth and legacy and significance. So what's important to them in manufacturing is they're looking for ways to optimize time and cost, right? They're looking at efficiencies in the business. And so you want to be mindful of that. Like some people can be a little frustrated at someone that's offering additional information to improve things, constantly improve. But that's what this person needs to be happy in their role. So when you're aware of that, you actually don't judge them as much. You're way more accepting. You're way more empathetic, and you understand that's just who they are.
It sounds easier.
It is easier to actually just accept people, right?
Yeah.
It kind of removes that frustration of like, why are you like that? Right.
Mm-hmm.
We all have someone in our life that's like, why are they acting like that? And then you realize, oh, it's because that's what they emotionally need.
Yeah.
The fourth emotional magnet is experience. And this one, I really relate to because it's one of mine, but essentially this is you're motivated by curiosity and progress and desire and change. So these people do not like monotony. They like change. And in a manufacturing setting, it might be something like they're the ones on your team that are really focused on how can we create a better experience for the team? How can we get them more engaged? How can we come together as a team more motivated to make the workplace more enjoyable, right? So when you take it from that point of view, I mean, it comes up not only in your business life, but also all through your personal life, right? I can give you an example. My fiance, his emotional magnets are safety and value, and mine are achievement and experience. So we've covered all four.
Wow.
And so I'll give you an example. We come home from work on Friday and he's exhausted. I'm exhausted. And I say, neither of us want to make dinner. So I say to him, okay, well, what are we going to have? He's like, just, pull out the phone. Let's skip the dishes, right? Let's order something.
Skip the dishes.
So I know he's safety. He's going to pick the same burger, the same thing he likes. He knows what he likes. He's going to stay within those boundaries. So I'm pretty sure as I'm scanning through my phone, okay, yeah, I'll pick something. So I come across Freshie and basically healthy kind of food. And I know what he likes. He likes the burrito. So I say to him, how about Freshie, honey? And he looks at me like I'm from Mars and he says, no. And now these are little simple interchanges that we do at work all the time and at home. I look back at him. I say, wait a minute. I don't understand. You love their burrito. What's going on? And then I have a download and I realize, he's motivated by value.
Mm-hmm.
And so I say to him, why is that exactly? And he said, it's 3 blocks away, Sandy. So I'm like, oh, he cannot validate someone driving that food over here 3 blocks for the cost he's going to spend. And so that makes sense. I turn back to him after as I understand. I have more acceptance, more empathy. There's no arguments. It's easy. And I say to him, by the way, honey, just how far does it have to be for us to have that value? He said 5 blocks. So that's just an example of like in a personal relationship, we have those conversations all the time. And typically they run into arguments, right? Mm-hmm. And in the workplace and in the manufacturing, you're having these types of conversations all the time. And so instead of assuming what someone needs and assuming what they want, open up that conversation and ask them, right? Like I find a lot of people, what they'll do is once they find out what their emotional magnet is, other names will pop into their head like popcorn and say, oh, that's why Joe does this. And that's why Max does that, right? So it gives you, as I said, more empathy, more understanding, and actually it forms amazing connections on a team.
So if you're listening to this and you're coming in and it's like, oh, okay, Sandy, I got somebody in my mind here. You can't just walk up and say, hey, what are your emotional needs? Right?
No,
so they're going to be like,
I don't recommend that.
we're barely even bringing emotion and mindfulness into manufacturing. Mm-hmm. What is wrong with you? But we do want to kind of find that out. What do you suggest? How do you start breaking this ice?
Yeah. So the easiest way to do that is all about rapport, right? It's building that connection. So it starts with questions and actual curiosity about the people that you're working with, right? Actually caring about who these people are and what they're doing with their life. And you can pick it up. So you're listening for keywords. In my book, I talk about like how to actually detect it, but it's basically as simple as asking a question and listening to what their response is. And then saying, well, why did you do that? And then they'll give you the answer, right? So if they're telling you, you ask them, tell me about your weekend. And instead of how are you or how was your weekend? Because you'll get a 1-word answer. Yeah. Start with tell me about your weekend. And then that's the easiest way to kind of listen to what they did. So I went fishing. I did this. I had this occasion. I did that. Then you can pick from that. Oh, I see. Yeah. They are really motivated by that. If someone asked me what I do on my weekend. Yeah, it's easy because you have to open up. It's more than closed questions. You have to open up some questions to give them the space to get to know these people a little better. The other way that's really easy to start understanding what these people need is to build that rapport. And, there's 3 ways to build rapport, right? Like we like people that like us. that are like us. We like people who compliment us. So always be complimenting people because you'll build a better connection. Not all the time or you'll look crazy, but when it's appropriate. And the third way is we like people that are working with us towards a mutual goal. Yeah. So building that rapport starts with communication. Ask a question, leave it as an open question, get that information back from them. Or another way to do it is just to share your experience. Hey, guess what I learned about myself this weekend? I learned this by taking this quiz, and open up that conversation. People often say, what quiz? What do you mean? You can learn about, we love learning about ourselves.
Absolutely.
Right? So offer them the quiz, point them to the quiz. It's free. They can go and check it out. And then now you have a point of reference to communicate about. And if you really want to have an engaged team, if you really want to get over the difficulties of some of these communication blocks that you've got on your team, you need to take that step. You need to share yourself with them. You need to share what motivates you. And then it normalizes it all for everybody.
Yeah. I love the simplicity of just, because I've always done that. I've what you do in your weekend, I'm kind of interested. But what you're doing for me, Stan, is just kind of really connecting those dots to say, so I have that information. I am curious. It's cool that this person, whenever I talk about the weekend, it's always about some family connection that they've had, right? So it's like they're very relationship focused, right? But then I don't think we're just not intentional, because we go on to the next topic and we don't think about bringing that back and saying, hey, when we're working on this project or we need to get this done, what are the questions and where can we put this person at ease around the relationship side of this situation? So, because even, I'm excited that I have wonderful partner, Diana. It's just a great, it's been a blessing. And so she did the quiz, I did the quiz, and I thought that I would come up a little bit higher in value. And then she was very high in value. So even just this week, we're out and it was like, we're just ordering some drinks, and I'm the achievement guy. And I always knew that, but it's like, man, is my ego that bad? I don't know. So it kind of just makes me reflect sometimes, but at the end of the day, it does drive me. And it's like, so we've had a really good month. She's a very hard worker and we both work hard. And it's kind of like, okay, yeah, let's get these drinks or whatever. And it's kind of like, she kind of looks at me and gives me that look, right? And it's kind of like, oh, I didn't look at the price.
Yeah.
And it was like, to me, it's a celebration. What's it matter?
Of
right?
course, because your achievement, right? Your achievement. So you want to celebrate that, right? Because you hit a milestone, right? Where she's looking at, well, wait a minute, we can celebrate, but let's do it within, in an economical way.
Yeah. And it's like, and an interesting part about the value is it's not how much it is that amount equal to the value that we're receiving, because it's not being cheap. It's just this whole, and then it's just great dialogue. So what happens? We get to know it, we become more aware because the more we talk about it. So if you're in the manufacturing plant, I love the idea of just like talking more about it. If you do the evaluation, then you can go on there and kind of see what yourself is, or just having those questions of how does this connect to the day-to-day, our day-to-day lives.
That's right, Trevor. And like when you think about the people that we work with, we all have labeled them. Like we've all labeled them, right? So we already have made up in our mind what these people are all about with very little information, right? Just our perception. So that's why it's even more important to really try and ask those questions and get at those conversations so that you can actually have more patience for them, right? You can have such better conversations when all that's gone away and your label is actually what they emotionally need. So, I've on my team, for example, in all my teams, I've always gone through an exercise of taking them through the 4 magnets, and then they share what they are. And these also change depending on your life and where you're at. So your emotional magnet is formed from your upbringing, from the obstacles and challenges you've gone through. And over time, they'll shift, right? Depending on what's happening in your life. So that's also another good way to start communicating with people on the team. What's going on with you? If you're thinking about sitting down with someone to do your performance review or go through KPIs, okay, so we should be asking, what do you emotionally need? I mean, if you said, what do you emotionally need? They'll look at you like you're from Mars, but you just say, what is it that you actually need to be happy in this role? That's the question.
Yeah.
And so what do you can drop the emotion piece, because that kind of makes people feel woo-woo and weird. But
Woo-hoo.
you could just say, essentially, what do you actually need to feel happy in the role? Now, if someone says, I need more money, well, they're value-based typically, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe they want to feel of value to, or valued by the company, right? They may not be feeling valued. If you're sitting down and you move a meeting that's about a performance review, and you move that to do something else, and that employee or that team member is driven by achievement, you are going to affect their engagement with the company, because that's what they need. So once you start talking about what you also need as a leader, many leaders are achievement driven, but they also have elements of emotional magnets as well. So, for me, I'm achievement and experience. It's really fun. I want to have fun at work. I want to enjoy what I do. I have a passion for what I do. If I'm in a workplace that doesn't mirror that, I'm not going to want to stay. So those are the kinds of things you just need to be aware of, just really shifting your mind state to think about someone else other than you. What is it that they actually need to hear to be enthusiastic about what you're saying?
This kind of ties it right up. So it's not about you. And even if we think that it's not about us, we need to recheck, and just kind of do that double check. So last thoughts, Sandy, if they're in the shop floor today, what's the one concept you want them, when they think of Sandy Gerber, what do you want them to remember from this episode?
I think that you need to take responsibility for communication with others, right? And it starts with you being understanding what you need to be happy, to be motivated, to listen and to act. So once you figure out that, then share that with people and tell them, I'm driven by achievement. I'm driven by experience. I want my team to be united, whatever it is. Share that with them. And then you're going to have unbelievable cohesion among your team, and more trust and empathy and acceptance. And ultimately, what that leads to? Productivity and profit.
Yes.
So we all want to get there, but we need to do it with the people that are on our teams. So start with yourself, understand what you need, communicate, learn, freshen up your communication skills. You can always do better that way. And then at the end of the day, have a more engaged team.
Awesome. And, if you're listening, you're already interested in doing something a little bit better than what you're doing today. You're taking a great first step. I want to leave with this quote from you, Sandy, that I just love. And the more empathy we create, the more relationships we nurture and potentially save, and the more love and acceptance we create in our world. That's a big idea. And I really resonate, from the achievement side of, relationships we nurture and potentially save, because either they're getting better or they're getting worse. Impermanence is never the same. And this has just been so helpful for me and Diana and people that I work with. So I'll be continue to share this. We'll have the book report on the website. And how else do they get a hold of you, Sandy?
Oh, thank you, Trevor, for having me on, and really for all the efforts you do to help the manufacturing industry, right? To really shine and excel. If they want to reach out to me, sandygerber.com. There's a quiz on my website, and they can also pick up the book, Emotional Magnetism. Thanks again, Trevor.
Awesome. And do the quiz. It doesn't cost anything.
That's right.
And it didn't take a long time either, because we don't have a lot of patience. So it was super great. So thanks for sharing that with us. Appreciate you, Sandy. Hey folks, appreciate you taking the time to join us today. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with someone. Haven't subscribed yet? Do it now. Remember, if you want results, the key is increasing your awareness of how you show up.